So for this week's assignment, we are going over the caffeine use guidelines, the benefits, the disadvantages of caffeine use, and what the athletic guidelines are for safe consumption of athletes in regards to a positive or negative test when tested, and what the normal guidelines are for caffeine. So some of the benefits of caffeine use, you have a quicker reaction time, so you can function a little bit better and more adverse compared to non-caffeine use. You have decreased fatigue, so you're not as tired. You're functioning a little bit better. You're not sleepy or fatigued, anything like that. You also have increased productivity from that decreased fatigue. You're able to function at a higher level. You can work more efficiently, be more alert. You also have better memory and thought retention, so you can retain some of that productivity, some of those ideas, and what you are retaining in the specific activity. So those are a couple of the benefits of caffeine use, but there also are some disadvantages of caffeine use. For those users who are not as used to caffeine as others, or maybe are taking a higher amount for their specific athletic activity, they can have an increased heart rate. You can also have like an increased anxiety causing those jitters. The unfortunate use of caffeine can cause like the crash where we've all been through that 2 o'clock withdrawal where we need caffeine now just because we're starting to crash from that caffeine high. And the sources of caffeine like coffee, energy drinks, and so on can cause dehydration as well. Those who can benefit from caffeine are usually endurance athletes because the caffeine can keep them prolonged and productive. So usually they say that endurance athletes are the best example for that because it keeps them going longer. So like soccer players, event runners, football players, basketball players, anything that is a greater session of 90 minutes generally is the guideline for that they would benefit the most from caffeine use. And then the NCAA guidelines is that they cannot have more than 500 milligrams, which is interesting because having 6 to 8 cups of coffee in a 2 to 3 hour span, even before the competition, that is overly significant, especially as we'll see in the next slide, the daily recommended limits of what caffeine use could be. Athletes can obviously exploit that because it does take a significant amount to get the 500 milligrams of caffeine, so they would be pushing their limits to begin with. So kind of what the guideline is for what is a safe consumption. So I researched and the Mayo Clinic had a general value of 400 milligrams. There wasn't like an in-between of what it is, but usually they recommend that you stay underneath the 400 milligrams, which a day-to-day person easily can and an athlete easily can, because most people can't have those 4.5 cups of coffee or 5 cans of energy drink. It just seems like a little excessive, and usually they would be running off of a table or on this just this crazy energy vibe. So the benefits and the disadvantages, that doesn't need to be weighed as much because what the NCAA guidelines have is such a significant amount that those would also vary because of the significance of that. So they would have the increased heart rate, the higher productivity, but they'd also have another can of worms that would be open and a lot more of a significant issue. So caffeine needs to get monitored more by the NCAA and what their guidelines should be, because that is a very significant amount, especially with the normal recommended daily values. And my resources.